Hello and welcome to another episode of the Wonky Cast. On this week's show, we are chatting with one of the organisers of the Nine Worlds Geek Fest, which we had the pleasure of attending over the weekend, the review of which you can find on the Wonky Spanner website. We'll stick the links to that in the show notes so you can have a look at it. Or possibly you even read that review and then came here to listen to the podcast based on that review. So if you did, then that's cool and you already know what this is. So yes, we were chatting to Eric Schultz, who is one of the organisers of the Nine Worlds Geek Fest. He gives us a bit of a rundown on where the event came from, how it all started up, what they're trying to achieve with it, and most importantly, what you can look forward to at next year's show if you missed this one.
Big fucking gun!
So anyway, sir,
Yeah, fantastic.
thanks for coming along. Obviously taking your time. We're smack bang in the middle of the day at the moment, so thank you very much for taking time.
No, it's great. Yeah.
How's today been going?
So far, so good. Yeah, no major problems today.
So, give us a bit of a background on the convention. Kind of how did the idea for this come about? Because it's only its second year this year, isn't it?
Yeah, that's
so
right.
How did the kind of idea for the convention come about?
Well, me and a few of the other organizers have been going to American conventions for a long time. And so we're like, oh, nothing really like that exists here in the UK. We have the sort of the expos.
Yeah, it's like the MCM Expos, London Film and Comic Con.
Yeah,
that kind of thing.
and that's great for what it is, but it's not really that sort of big, immersive residential con experience that we were getting from the States. And there were some events here, and great events like EasterCon, but they're very literary focused.
Yeah.
And we were sort of like, something multimedia and sort of trying to bring all the strands of fandom together. And so we started talking about this with lots of friends, and they were like, yeah, do it. And we're like, okay. And then we rolled out a Kickstarter, and it was really successful, and we felt like, okay, yeah, there's a lot of interest in this. So let's see what can happen. And as we started moving forward, just a fantastic bunch of people joined us from all different kinds of areas of fandom, just people who are huge enthusiasts themselves or people that run events on specific areas of fandom, and that just built this momentum. I mean, the first year we had 50 volunteers running content. I think this year we're probably up towards 70.
Okay.
Because
there's something along the lines of 20 odd different tracks going on.
That's right. Yeah.
So there's a whole lot of stuff, and it really does run the gamut of all sorts of different things. You've got everything from like food geekery, and cosplay and that kind of thing, and then to things like LARP, and it goes as far as the kind of tech side of geekery and maths and that sort of thing. Did you kind of sit down originally and go, you know what, we just want it to kind of include everything, or did you kind of go, we'd like a bit of this and a bit of that, and was it kind of just like a blue sky thing of this is what we want?
One more time, sorry, could you ask that again?
Did you kind of set out to go, hey, you know what, we want to do this massively eclectic mix of stuff, or did it just kind of grow that way from people wanting to input?
Both. We had a dream of this massively eclectic group of stuff, and then we got a different massive eclectic group of stuff that wasn't quite what we were dreaming, but was beyond what we were dreaming in many cases. Because we went out there and said, who wants to be a part of this? And lots of people did come in, and we were introduced to fandoms that we didn't even know existed.
Okay.
And that was fabulous, because it turns out they're really popular.
Yeah, well, what sort of things were they that I was surprised by?
Social gaming, for example, I'd never even heard of. And it turns out that's hugely popular.
So is that in terms of like board games? And, all right, okay. Yeah,
well, no, that's the... we have board games as well, but the social gamers, they take... like childhood, like fun games, and reorient them for adult play in just sort of a social mingling, icebreakery kind of situation.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, it's not something I've come across.
Yeah.
I do a lot of gaming, but it's all tabletop and LARP and that sort of thing.
A fandom. I personally wasn't so aware of how big fanfic writing and reading is, but that's actually one of our core elements here. Is
I mean,
a really
that's
popular.
a huge community
it's
now,
a huge
isn't it?
community that's come together, and they find Nine Worlds a really good space to do that in.
Because I think that certainly stuff like fanfic seems to have taken off a lot in the last couple of years. You know, stuff like 50 Shades of Grey, which obviously that started out as fanfic,
Absolutely.
and then that kind of exploded. So I think the world kind of accepts that kind of thing a bit more now.
Yeah.
Do you find that the kind of group of people that are coming here, is it still a very mixed crowd of people, or are you getting more mainstream attendance, or is it the people who want to come to an event because it's theirs? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm not quite sure how to answer that one, actually. I'm not quite sure what the motivations for people are. We do get new tracks that seem a little bit more mainstream. As a result of last year's, for example, we developed a Whedon track because people came to our event last year and they're like, "This is great, but you don't have enough Whedon." And we're
There's
like,
never enough Whedon in the world.
why don't you do something about it? And to our surprise, they came back with a whole proposal for a track.
That's the thing.
And
People
we're like,
say that to
wow,
people,
that's
they will do it.
fabulous. Okay, you guys go. And so that I would sort of categorize in the field of more mainstream fandom.
And I think like Game of Thrones are the big ones.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Same
what I've
situation there.
noticed is one of the massive differences between the expos and the London Film and Comic Cons, where you all get thousands of you shoved in a room when you can't even get to see the merchandise. Here it's quite almost it's a very personal experience. There are so many tracks that there's probably only like less than 30 people in a room.
Right.
And it just feels a lot more personal as an event.
Yeah.
And that's really nice.
Well, that's what we were aiming for, and that's my experience of some of the big residential hotel cons in America as well. Dragon Con, for example, I think a lot of their sessions are the size that we do, and they have lots and lots of diverse smaller fandoms. And of course, they have the huge sort of 3,000 person panel of Lord of the Rings actors or whatever, but that isn't really the meat and potatoes of the con. I think it is the steampunks, and it is the YA fiction enthusiasts and people like that, and they gather in small groups of 50 or 100 people to talk about their stuff.
We visited the steampunks in the basement earlier.
Yeah.
Oh yes, okay.
Steampunks are located in the furthest part of the dungeon.
Yeah.
So we do a lot of steampunk events, so we tend to try and find where they are and have a chat with them, and
Great.
Followed all the signs, and we're like,
Yep.
We're trekking through Mordor to get to this now. On the other side, there be steampunks.
That's right. Yeah.
What are your sort of highlights of a weekend like this? Because obviously, as cons develop, there are certain things that happen, like things like masquerade balls and stuff, and other events that become the kind of linchpin events of a con. What would you say is the one here, or a couple of them?
Well, I'm probably biased because I'm in charge of the Ents program, the entertainment program here. So I really enjoyed the Queen tribute band that played last night, and it was a really good atmosphere. And I think this band probably had never played to a crowd of 300 people, of whom knew every word of every Queen song they played, and they were just like, "This is amazing." They just turned the microphone onto the crowd, and the crowd sang the songs for them, and they were like, wow. So they felt like superstars, and it was a really good atmosphere in there. So that was my favorite bit of the con so far.
Okay, and what have we got coming up over the rest of today and tomorrow even, because you're still on tomorrow, aren't you?
We're on till tomorrow evening, yeah.
Okay, cool.
Well, we've got a really cool party going on in the Books Room, a high school prom themed event called Promenado.
Okay.
Yeah, and they've got a mix of readings and music and drinks and nibbles. So that's sort of a socializing and getting a chance to meet authors. The LGBT track has a queer cabaret going on tonight, so they've got a wide variety of artists up on our main stage, and then that'll turn into a disco after that. And late tonight we've got our rock band team.
Okay.
Which is was really popular last year.
Oh, is that as in Rock Band the game?
It is Rock
right,
Band the
awesome.
game, except that they've totally hacked it with all like fabulous instruments and light shows and the whole thing. So they've got the sort of playing the club experience going on there. Yeah. And the queue was out the door last year for people looking to get up there and play in the Rock Band, and they've got all the songs ever.
Sweet.
So they can go on all night. Those guys.
Sounds like fun. I'm gonna have to look
It
into
is
that.
it is a good gig actually.
Dust off the guitars.
Yeah.
Now, another thing about this convention that kind of sets it apart is its concept of inclusivity and kind of just and general social awareness, which is not something that a lot of cons do. I mean, we've been to cons in the past where we felt uncomfortable because of how people are acting towards other people, and there's ended up with some kind of like sour atmospheres, and certainly at the late night
sleazy
stuff.
men after bikini layers.
Yeah.
Oh right.
That kind of thing. So, I mean, was that kind of idea of social acceptance and inclusivity, was that something that you really wanted to put into this to start with? Where did that come from?
Well, it was definitely something that we felt the world needed. That was a huge motivation. I mean, we were going to these conventions and we were enjoying them, the existing established conventions, while at the same time recognizing that they are things of their time, and many of them are 30 years old and their culture hasn't changed as much as the times have, but the times have changed, and we're moving more into a world of social acceptance and social responsibility, I think, on the part of con attendees. And so it only made sense for a new con to start with a new agenda on that front, and we've really put inclusivity forward. We've really made it as safe a space as we can for many different groups that have at times felt marginalized or threatened within other communities of geekdom. So that was a huge important issue for us.
The colour labelling is especially good with people with social anxiety and the fact that you can say don't talk to me, or I'm shy, or I'll talk to you if I know you, sort of thing. And that's a really nice touch.
That's fantastic. Yeah. No, there's little bits that people suggest to us, or we come up on our own. Another thing that's popular this year are pronoun badges. So people who wish to be identified by a certain pronoun can wear a badge that says, "Hey, call me this."
Sure.
And that's an optional thing that people can use, but it's another a small little thing that really takes no effort on our part, but makes the con experience more pleasant for certain attendees. And it's not hard to do, really. It's not hard to sit down and think, how can we make this an even better space, with the recognition that lots of little groups have little things they need that don't actually take anything away from anybody else to put that on the table.
Yeah, because there's certainly a very different feel at this to a lot of the other conventions, because like the big expos and things that I've covered in the past, they are very much like you don't charge that much to get into them, but then everything you do when you're in there you have to pay, and you have to queue up for all this X, Y, and Z. And this seems to be very much like, well, there's all this stuff going on, if you want to be involved, great, go and do it, and just go and explore and find your own thing.
Right.
I think that's an excellent thing for a convention to have, because I think it's too easy, I think, for conventions to kind of go, oh, we can make lots of money doing X.
Right.
Again, is that something that you kind of thought of to start with? Were you kind of like, when you've paid to get in, you're in, and then, if you want to buy stuff from salespeople, fine, do it, but we're not going to charge you extra for all this extra stuff.
Basically, because we're con goers ourselves, we just sat down and thought, what's the con we'd like to go to? And that's the con that we built. And as you say, I mean, nobody wants to be charged all weekend long. It makes sense to front load all the costs. And that's why a lot of people will email us throughout the year, and it's like, wow, you guys are 4 times more expensive than London Film and Comic Con.
But that's because...
And they have Peter Dinklage. You don't have Peter Dinklage. And we're like, well, yeah, but if you go there, that's a different experience, and that's about standing in queue to get Peter Dinklage to sign your photo for 45 quid.
Yeah.
And this is a different experience that we have here. And that's...
Do you find people take a while to get their heads around that as a concept?
People who've only been to the expos really don't understand what we're doing here. And a lot of our initial fan base came from people who have more experience with organizations like WorldCon and EasterCon, or have been overseas and have enjoyed events like Comic-Con in San Diego or DragonCon or Gen Con, and they're aware of what sort of the big residential weekend convention could be, and those are the people who backed our Kickstarter and were really excited by this idea.
Yeah.
But we're still continually having to explain to people why that this isn't 15 quid thing.
Yeah. I think that's
I
great.
much prefer the cost up front because you know what you're getting into. I just feel like when I go to the expos that you're just being ripped off. Yeah, and you don't even really get anywhere to sit. I mean, here you supply water.
Yeah, hey,
It's
water.
a fantastic concept.
That is the thing, there's water freely available around the place. You don't have to go and mug someone for a glass of water.
Yeah, the water was definitely on our list of things. We're like, what do we wish we could have at our convention? Wow, wouldn't it be great if people could drink water?
Yeah, so that's what I was going to talk about. Is because I think the UK convention and event scene at the moment it's going through what seems like a massive period of growth. There seems to be conventions springing up everywhere, in all the kind of holiday camps for the weekends they're doing, and it's not just this kind of thing. It's like a music festival that they do over a weekend, that sort of thing. And a lot of them, unfortunately, I mean, there was a very prominent example recently. I don't know if you've heard of Outfest.
Of course, yes.
And the problems that they've had last week.
Yeah.
It seems like it's a very tough market to kind of to start something like this. And I think I think they even started from a Kickstarter backing.
They did, yeah.
In a kind of similar vein. I mean, do you find it a challenge getting people to buy into this sort of thing to begin with?
Not really, but that's because this is whatever people bring to it. So if 1,000 people want to come to this, that's the event that we put on.
Sure.
And we're not underwriting Marilyn Manson here.
Yeah.
So if 1,000 people give us their money, they'll get that event. And if 1,500 people give us their money, they'll get that event.
So yeah, the more people, the more
More
money,
people
the more
you get.
stuff.
Yeah. So we are growing, and next year we'll be over 2 hotels completely. I don't know if you made it last year.
No, we couldn't make
Yeah.
it last year. I think we only just heard about it
right.
the week before.
I understand.
Because we had Emma Newman on the show
Right.
last year. And then she was like, "Oh, I'm going to this thing next week." And we're
Oh.
like, "What? That sounds amazing!" She's like, "That's next week. We just can't make it."
We love Emma so much here.
She's fantastic.
Yes.
Yeah, she was due to come up, but couldn't make it. We'll
Yeah.
catch up with her again later. Yeah, she's
But last year we were at the Renaissance across the road, and this year it worked better for us to be here at the Radisson. But next year we'll be at both hotels.
Okay.
So we've got some new tracks coming, and we're growing with numbers.
Cool.
But yeah, so in a sense, we don't really have we need to make so much money to make this go on. We really could put this event on for 500 people. It
Sure.
would just be a different event.
It's just the more people arrive, the more occurs.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then there's more money for new tracks and different kinds of events. But I don't think that at the end of the day, that really is what brings people here. They want to gather with fellow geeks and talk about the things that excite them over the weekend.
Absolutely.
So that's a plus for us.
And so, anything big and exciting that you could say about you've got coming up next year?
Well, we're
Any
going.
big plans?
Yeah. One of our really popular tracks this year that's running for the first time is Food Geekery.
Yeah.
So we're definitely going to give them some more space, and they have all kinds of ideas about bringing in craft beer people and people who make unusual cheeses and molecular
amazing.
mixology.
Bacon fudge.
And so that's going to be
Bacon
a
fudge.
track that expands for us. And next year we're going to have a dedicated science track.
All right, awesome.
On top of other things. This year we have the Royal Observatory talking about space exploration and issues around, especially around their longitude.
We were down there
project.
there last week at the
So
Steampunk Summer
that's
Fair.
hugely popular, and so that's going to expand out to be a full-on science track, looking at lots of different things.
I would highly recommend Festival of the Spoken Nerd if you've not come across them.
We have, and I'm sure that we will eventually find a way to connect with
They're
them
fantastic.
because they are
were on the
amazing.
show about a month
Yes.
ago. We were chatting to them. They're lovely, lovely guys. Them.
About the food geekery, knitting with strawberry laces, I'd never considered it. It could so happen.
Edible sweaters.
Yes, they are definitely knitting with strawberry laces.
Cool. All right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for your time, sir. I hope it all goes well for the rest of the day.
Yeah, thanks so much.
No
This is
worries.
great.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Big fucking gun.